Marcus Bennett sat in the waiting room of Horizon Enterprises, gripping a folder that contained nothing but hope and desperation. He had applied for a data entry position, something stable, something that would let him keep the lights on and feed his son without choosing between rent and groceries. The office around him gleamed with the kind of wealth he had only seen in magazines. Marble floors, glass walls, and people in suits that probably cost more than his monthly income. He felt out of place, but he had learned long ago that feeling out of place was better than feeling helpless. His phone buzzed. A text from his neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who was watching his 7-year-old son, Jamie. All good here. Jamie finished his homework. Take your time. Marcus exhaled. He had exactly 1 hour before he needed to pick Jamie up from her apartment. 1 hour to make an impression, land this job, and start rebuilding the life that had fallen apart 6 months ago when his wife left without warning. He checked the time, 11:45. His interview was scheduled for noon with someone from Human Resources. He straightened his tie, the only one he owned, and waited. At 11:58, a woman in a crisp blazer stepped into the waiting room. She looked harried, scanning a tablet with the kind of focus that suggested she was already behind schedule. She glanced up, saw Marcus, and frowned slightly. Then she looked back at her tablet, scrolled, and her frown deepened. She walked over to him. "Mr. Bennett?" "Yes," Marcus said, standing quickly. "There has been a scheduling mix-up," the woman said, her voice tight with frustration. "Your interview was supposed to be conducted by Angela in HR, but she called in sick this morning. We are trying to reassign, but everyone is booked." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "So does that mean I should reschedule?" The woman hesitated, then glanced at her tablet again. She seemed to be weighing something, calculating odds Marcus could not see. "Give me 1 moment," she said, then turned and walked briskly down the hallway. Marcus sat back down. He told himself not to panic. Rescheduling was not the end of the world. He could make it work. He had to make it work. But the minutes ticked by and doubt crept in like cold water rising. 2 minutes later, the woman returned. "Follow me," she said. Marcus stood, confused but obedient. He followed her through a maze of glass corridors, past conference rooms filled with people gesturing at screens, past offices where executives spoke into headsets with the confidence of people who had never worried about rent. They stopped in front of a door at the end of the hall. The woman knocked once, then opened it without waiting for a response. "Ms. Castellano, I know this is irregular, but we have a candidate here for the data entry role and no one available to conduct the interview. Would you be willing to step in? Just 15 minutes. The woman behind the desk looked up. She was younger than Marcus expected, maybe late 30s, with sharp eyes and an expression that suggested she did not tolerate inefficiency. She glanced at Marcus, then at the woman who had brought him. "Fine," she said, 15 minutes. The woman nodded, gestured for Marcus to enter and left, closing the door behind her. Marcus stood awkwardly just inside the threshold. The office was larger than his entire apartment. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city. The desk was immaculate. Everything about the space radiated control. "Sit," the woman said, not unkindly but not warmly either. Marcus sat. He set his folder on his lap and tried to look composed. The woman, Ms. Castellano, leaned back in her chair and studied him for a moment. Then she opened a file on her computer, scanned it briefly, and looked back at him. "Tell me why you want this position," she said. Marcus had rehearsed this answer a dozen times, but sitting across from someone who clearly wielded enormous power made his prepared speech feel hollow. He decided to tell the truth instead. "I need stable work," he said. "I have a son, I am raising him on my own, and I need a job that pays enough to cover our expenses and lets me be there when he needs me." This position seemed like it could do that. Ms. Castellano's expression did not change. "That is honest," she said, "but it does not tell me why I should hire you over someone else." Marcus nodded. "I understand. I have experience in data management from my last job. I am detail-oriented. I show up on time. I do not make excuses. And I work hard because I do not have the luxury of not working hard." There was a pause. Ms. Castellano tilted her head slightly as if reconsidering him. "What happened at your last job?" she asked. "I was laid off," Marcus said. "The company downsized. I was one of 20 people let go in the same week." Another pause. Then she asked, "What is the hardest part of being a single parent?" Marcus blinked. That was not a question he had expected in a job interview. But something in her tone suggested she was not asking out of pity. She was asking because she wanted to know. "The hardest part is making decisions alone," Marcus said. "Every choice, big or small, falls on you. and you do not get to second-guess yourself because your kid is counting on you to get it right. Ms. Castellano nodded slowly. She seemed to be processing something, though Marcus could not tell what. Then she closed the file on her computer and looked at him directly. I am going to be honest with you, Mr. Bennett. This was supposed to be a quick favor. I am not involved in hiring for entry-level positions, but I have been sitting here listening to you, and I think you might be better suited for something else. Marcus did not know what to say, he just waited. There is a position opening in operations coordination, she continued. It is not glamorous, but it requires someone who can stay calm under pressure, manage multiple priorities, and solve problems without waiting for permission. Based on what you just told me, I think you could handle it. It pays more than the data entry role. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. Are you offering me a different job? Not yet, she said. But I am telling you that if you are interested, I will set up a proper interview for that role, and I will personally recommend you. He stared at her, trying to understand why a woman with an office like this would take an interest in someone like him. Why would you do that? He asked. Because I have spent the last 6 months interviewing people who looked perfect on paper and could not handle real pressure, she said. You walked in here with nothing to lose and told me the truth. That is rarer than you think. Marcus did not know what to say, so he just nodded. I am interested, he said. Good, Ms. Castellano said. She wrote something on a notepad, tore off the page, and handed it to him. Give this to reception on your way out. They will schedule your follow-up. Marcus took the paper. It had a name, a date, and a time written in precise handwriting. He stood, still trying to process what had just happened. Thank you, he said. Do not thank me yet, she replied. Just show up and prove I was right. Marcus left the office and walked back through the glass corridors in a daze. He handed the note to the receptionist, who scanned it, nodded, and entered something into her computer. Your interview is scheduled for Monday at 10, she said. Marcus thanked her and left the building. Outside, the city noise hit him all at once. Traffic, voices, the hum of a world that kept moving whether you were ready or not. He checked his phone. 12:20, he still had time to pick up Jamie. As he walked toward the subway, he thought about the woman in the corner office, Ms. Castellano. He did not know why she had helped him, but he knew one thing for certain. He was not going to waste the chance she had given him. When he picked up Jamie from Mrs. Chen's apartment, his son ran to him with the kind of unguarded joy that made everything worth it. Did you get the job, Dad? Jamie asked. Not yet, Marcus said, but I got another chance, and that is enough for now. Jamie grinned. That is good. Marcus ruffled his hair and thought about Monday. He thought about what he would say, how he would prove himself, and how he would make sure his son never had to worry about whether his father could provide. He did not know what was waiting for him at Horizon Enterprises, but for the first time in months he felt something close to hope. And hope, he had learned, was enough to keep moving forward. If you want the full truth, hit like so this story reaches more people. Monday morning arrived with the weight of expectation. Marcus woke up at 5:30, an hour earlier than necessary because sleep had become impossible. He lay in the dark listening to Jamie breathe in the bed across the room of their small apartment. The sound was steady, peaceful, and it reminded Marcus why failure was not an option. He got up quietly, made coffee, and reviewed the notes he had written over the weekend. He had researched Horizon Enterprises, read every article he could find about their operations, and memorized the names of key executives. Victoria Castellano was the CEO, 38 years old, built the company from a mid-tier consulting firm into a billion-dollar enterprise in less than a decade. Known for being brilliant, demanding, and almost impossible to impress. Marcus had not realized who she was when he sat across from her on Friday. He had thought she was just someone doing a favor for HR. Now, knowing the truth, he felt both terrified and strangely honored. The CEO of a billion-dollar company had taken 15 minutes to listen to him. That had to mean something. At 7, he woke Jamie, made breakfast, and walked him to school. His son chattered about a science project, something involving volcanoes and baking soda, and Marcus listened with half his attention while the other half churned through worst-case scenarios. What if he messed up the interview? What if Victoria Castellano had changed her mind? What if this was all some misunderstanding and he showed up only to be turned away? He kissed Jamie goodbye at the school gate and watched him run inside. Then he turned and headed toward the subway. The interview was at 10. He arrived at Horizon Enterprises at 9:45. The receptionist recognized him from Friday and smiled. Ms. Castellano is expecting you. Conference room B, second floor. Marcus thanked her and took the elevator up. His palms were sweating. He wiped them on his pants and told himself to breathe. Conference room B was smaller than he expected, but still pristine. Glass table, leather chairs, a screen on the wall displaying the Horizon logo. He sat down and waited. At exactly 10, the door opened. Victoria Castellano walked in, followed by a man in his 50s wearing a suit that looked like it had been tailored specifically for him. Victoria gestured for Marcus to stay seated. "Mr. Bennett, this is Richard Lowell, our Director of Operations. He will be conducting most of this interview. I am here to observe." Richard extended his hand. Marcus shook it, trying to project confidence he did not entirely feel. "Let's get started," Richard said, sitting down across from him. Victoria took a seat at the far end of the table, her expression unreadable. Richard opened a tablet and scanned it briefly. "Ms. Castellano tells me you have experience in data management and that you handle pressure well. Walk me through a time when you had to manage competing priorities under a tight deadline." Marcus took a breath. He had prepared for this. "At my last job, I was responsible for processing client orders while also managing inventory updates. One afternoon, the system crashed right before a major shipment deadline. I had 3 hours to manually verify 200 orders, cross-reference them with inventory, and get everything to the warehouse. I stayed late, worked through it line by line, and we made the deadline without errors." Richard nodded. "What did you learn from that experience?" "That systems fail, but people do not have to," Marcus said. "If you stay focused and break the problem into manageable pieces, you can get through almost anything." Richard made a note on his tablet. Victoria remained silent, watching. The interview continued for another 30 minutes. Richard asked about conflict resolution, time management, and how Marcus would handle a situation where a supervisor gave unclear instructions. Marcus answered each question honestly, drawing from real experiences, refusing to embellish or pretend he knew more than he did. Finally, Richard leaned back and glanced at Victoria. She gave a small nod. "Mr. Bennett," Richard said, "I am going to be direct. This role requires someone who can coordinate across multiple departments, handle last-minute changes, and keep operations running smoothly when things go wrong. It is not a stepping stone. It is a critical function. Based on this conversation, I think you can do it, but I need to know you are committed. If we offer you this position, are you in?" Marcus did not hesitate. "I am in." Richard smiled. "Good. We will send you an official offer by end of day. Welcome to Horizon Enterprises." Marcus felt the tension drain out of him all at once. He shook Richard's hand, then turned to Victoria. She stood and walked over. "You did well," she said quietly. "Do not make me regret this." "I won not," Marcus said. She nodded, then left the room. Richard stayed behind to go over logistics, start date, salary, benefits. The numbers were better than Marcus had dared to hope, enough to move into a better apartment, enough to stop worrying about whether Jamie's shoes would last another month. When he left the building, Marcus stood on the sidewalk and called Mrs. Chen. "I got it," he said. "I got the job." She congratulated him, told him Jamie would be thrilled, and Marcus felt something he had not felt in a long time. Pride, not the loud, boastful kind, but the quiet satisfaction of knowing he had earned something. He started the following Monday. The first week was overwhelming. There were systems to learn, people to meet, processes to memorize. But Marcus kept his head down and absorbed everything like his life depended on it, because it did. He arrived early, stayed late when necessary, and never complained. He learned the names of everyone in operations, figured out who to ask for help, and started finding small ways to make things run more efficiently. By the end of the second week, people had stopped seeing him as the new guy and started treating him like part of the team. But not everyone was convinced. There was a woman named Denise in logistics who watched him with barely concealed skepticism. She had been with the company for 8 years and had a reputation for being territorial. One afternoon, she stopped by his desk. "You are the one Victoria personally hired, right?" Denise asked. Marcus looked up. "I went through the interview process like everyone else." "Sure," Denise said, her tone laced with something Marcus could not quite name. "Just seems unusual that the CEO would take an interest in someone at your level." Marcus did not take the bait. He just nodded and went back to his work, but he felt the weight of her words. He knew what people were thinking, that he had gotten the job through favoritism, through luck, through something other than merit. And he knew the only way to prove them wrong was to be undeniable. So that is what he did. He worked harder than anyone else. He solved problems before they escalated. He stayed calm when things went wrong. And slowly, the skepticism began to fade. 3 weeks in, there was a crisis. A shipment delay threatened to derail a major client delivery. The operations team was scrambling, and no one could find a solution that did not involve missing the deadline or paying exorbitant fees for expedited shipping. Marcus was at his desk when Richard appeared, looking stressed. Bennett, I need you to figure out if we can reroute through our secondary distributor and still hit the delivery window. I need an answer in 30 minutes. Marcus pulled up the logistics software, cross-referenced delivery routes, checked inventory levels at 3 different warehouses, and ran the numbers. 28 minutes later, he walked into Richard's office. We can do it, Marcus said. If we split the shipment between 2 distributors and use ground transport for the bulk items, we will hit the window with 6 hours to spare. Cost increase is negligible. Richard stared at him. You are sure? Positive, Marcus said. Richard made the call. The plan worked. The client got their delivery on time and the company avoided a costly mistake. The next morning, Victoria stopped by Marcus's desk. It was the first time she had spoken to him since his interview. I heard what you did yesterday, she said. That was good work. Marcus nodded. Just doing my job. She almost smiled. Keep it up. Comment respect if you believe he deserved this chance. That evening, Marcus picked up Jamie from after-school care and took him out for pizza. It was a small celebration, nothing extravagant, but Jamie's excitement made it feel like the best meal Marcus had ever had. You are really good at your job, Dad, Jamie said through a mouthful of cheese. Marcus laughed. How do you know? Because you are happy, Jamie said. You have not been happy in a long time. Marcus felt his chest tight. His son was right. He had been carrying so much weight for so long that he had forgotten what it felt like to breathe without it. I am getting there, Marcus said. And it is going to keep getting better. Jamie grinned, and Marcus knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, he had already won the only fight that mattered. He was building a life his son could be proud of, and that was enough. 2 months into the job, Marcus had become indispensable. He knew it not because anyone told him directly, but because people had started coming to him first when problems arose. The operations team trusted him. Richard relied on him. Even Denise, who had been so skeptical at the beginning, now consulted him on logistics issues without hesitation. But success brought visibility, and visibility brought scrutiny. Marcus first noticed it during a department meeting in late March. Victoria had called together the operations and logistics teams to discuss quarterly performance. She stood at the head of the conference room, running through metrics with the kind of precision that made everyone sit up straighter. When she reached the section on process improvements, she paused. Our delivery accuracy has improved by 12% this quarter, Victoria said, and our client satisfaction scores are at an all-time high. A significant part of that is due to workflow optimizations introduced by Marcus Bennett. She gestured toward him, and suddenly every eye in the room was on him. Marcus felt his face heat up. He had not expected public recognition. He had just been doing his job. Marcus identified inefficiencies in our routing system and proposed solutions that saved us both time and money, Victoria continued. That kind of initiative is exactly what we need more of. There was polite applause. Some people smiled genuinely. Others looked surprised, as if they were recalculating their assumptions about who he was. But one person in the room did not applaud. His name was Gregory Haynes, a senior operations manager who had been with Horizon for 6 years. He sat near the back, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. After the meeting, Marcus returned to his desk and tried to focus on work, but his mind kept drifting back to the way Gregory had looked at him. It was not hostility exactly, but it was not friendliness either. It was the look of someone who had just realized they had competition. An hour later, Gregory appeared at Marcus's desk. Got a minute? Gregory asked. Sure, Marcus said, gesturing to the chair beside him. Gregory did not sit. He leaned against the desk instead, casual but deliberate. Congratulations on the recognition, Gregory said. That was impressive. Thanks, Marcus replied, unsure where this was going. I am curious, Gregory continued. How did you figure out the routing issue? I have been here 6 years and never thought to look at it that way. Marcus hesitated. He did not want to sound arrogant, but he also did not want to downplay his work. I just noticed that we were using the same routes out of habit even when traffic patterns had changed. So I pulled the delivery data, compared it against current conditions, and suggested adjustments. Simple as that. Gregory nodded slowly. Simple, right? He straightened and looked at Marcus directly. Word of advice. Be careful about making other people look bad, even if you do not mean to. Marcus frowned. I am not trying to make anyone look bad. I am just trying to do my job. I know, Gregory said, but perception matters. And right now, people are wondering how the new guy figured out something the rest of us missed. Just keep that in mind. He walked away before Marcus could respond. Marcus sat there processing the conversation. He had not thought about it that way. He had been so focused on proving himself that he had not considered how his success might be perceived by people who had been here longer. That evening, as Marcus picked up Jamie from Mrs. Chen's apartment, his son noticed his distracted mood. "You okay, Dad?" Jamie asked. "Yeah," Marcus said, "just thinking about work." "Is it bad?" "No," Marcus said, "just complicated." Jamie seemed to accept that. They walked home together and Marcus tried to shake off the unease Gregory's words had planted. But over the next few weeks, that unease grew. Small things started happening. Marcus would propose an idea in a meeting and Gregory would find a reason to question it, not aggressively but enough to plant doubt. Marcus would solve a problem and Gregory would suggest that the solution created new issues that needed monitoring. It was never overt. It was never something Marcus could point to and call out. But it was there, a constant undercurrent of resistance. Marcus tried to ignore it. He kept his head down, kept doing good work, kept proving himself. But the tension was wearing on him. One afternoon in early April, everything came to a head. A major client, Redwood Industries, had requested an expedited delivery schedule that required coordinating between 3 warehouses and 2 shipping companies. It was complicated, but Marcus had handled similar requests before. He built the plan, ran it by Richard, and got approval. But when he sent the coordination email to the logistics team, Gregory responded with a single line. "This approach creates unnecessary risk. We should use the standard protocol." Marcus stared at the email. The standard protocol would not meet the client's timeline. That was the entire point of the expedited plan. He wrote back, explaining the reasoning and offering to walk Gregory through the details. Gregory's response came 10 minutes later, copied to Richard and half the operations team. "I understand the intent, but I have been coordinating complex shipments for 6 years. This plan introduces variables we cannot control. I recommend we push back on the client's timeline rather than overcommit and fail." Marcus felt his pulse quicken. Gregory was not just questioning the plan, he was questioning Marcus's competence in front of the entire team. Before Marcus could respond, Richard stepped in with an email of his own. "I have reviewed Marcus's plan and it is sound. We are moving forward as proposed. Gregory, if you have specific concerns, bring them to me directly instead of debating via email." The thread went silent after that. Marcus exhaled, relieved that Richard had backed him up but also acutely aware that he had just made an enemy. The expedited delivery went off without a hitch. The client was thrilled. Richard sent a congratulatory email to the team, specifically mentioning Marcus's coordination. But the victory felt hollow because Marcus knew the cost. Gregory barely spoke to him after that, and a few other senior staff members, people who had been friendly before, started keeping their distance. Marcus could feel the shift. He was no longer just the new guy who had gotten lucky. He was a threat. Type yes if you want to see how this all plays out. One evening, as Marcus was packing up to leave, Victoria appeared at his desk. She rarely came down to the operations floor, so her presence immediately drew attention. "Walk with me," she said. It was not a request. Marcus grabbed his bag and followed her. They walked in silence through the glass corridors until they reached a quiet corner near the executive offices. Victoria stopped and turned to face him. "You have made enemies," she said. It was not a question. Marcus nodded. "I did not mean to." "I know," Victoria said, "but intent does not matter, results do, and your results have made certain people uncomfortable." She paused, studying him. "How are you handling it?" "Honestly," Marcus said, "it is harder than I thought it would be. I came here to work hard and provide for my son. I did not expect office politics." Victoria almost smiled. "Office politics are unavoidable. The question is whether you let them stop you or whether you use them to get better at navigating people." Marcus considered that. "So what do I do?" "You keep doing exactly what you have been doing," Victoria said. "You stay focused on the work, you do not retaliate, you do not stoop to their level, and you trust that the people who matter will see the truth." She started to walk away, then stopped and looked back. "And Marcus, you are doing better than you think. Do not let anyone convince you otherwise." She left, and Marcus stood there alone in the empty hallway. Her words settled over him like armor. He was not perfect, he was still learning, but he was doing the work and that had to count for something. When he got home that night, Jamie was already asleep. Marcus sat on the edge of his son's bed and watched him breathe the same way he had done 100 times before. He thought about everything that had led him here. The desperation, the fear, the impossible hope that things could get better. And he thought about the woman who had taken a chance on him when she had no reason to. Victoria Castellano could have ignored him. She could have let him slip through the cracks like so many others, but she had seen something in him, something worth believing in. And now it was his job to prove she was right. Marcus leaned down and kissed his son's forehead. Then he stood, turned off the light, and went to prepare for the next day, because no matter how hard it got, he was not going anywhere. He had fought too hard to get here, and he was not going to let anyone take it away.